Marylebone is one of those London neighbourhoods that quietly surprises you. You can step off the chaos of this place, Oxford Street, and, within seconds, find yourself in calm lanes, village-like streets, and pockets of history stretching back nearly 1,000 years. Today, we're walking from Oxford Street all the way to Primrose Hill, through Marylebone, Manchester Square, Regent's Park and the canal. Before we begin, a quick word about Marylebone itself. The name Marylebone comes from St Mary at the Bourne, the medieval church dedicated to St Mary, built near a small stream or bourne that once ran through the area. Over time, Marylebone became Marylebone. Yes, don't ask me how, it just did. For centuries this land belonged to the Manor of Tyburn, held by the Abbey of Barking in the Middle Ages. I've already done a video about Barking Abbey, so do check it out. After the dissolution of the monasteries, it passed through several hands, eventually becoming part of the vast estates of the Portman family, who still own much of Marylebone today. The area remained semi-rural until the 18th century, when planned streets, squares and terraces began to rise. This is a good moment to show William Dalton's 1817 map. You'll see how the centre of Marylebone was already laid out and that Baker Street was already in existence long before Sherlock Holmes. Talking of the fella, we shall see him later. I was so glad I discovered St Christopher's Place, a tucked-away courtyard of cafes, galleries and independent shops. It's a good place to grab a coffee before the walk properly begins. Despite being seconds from Oxford Street, it already feels calmer. That is the wonder of London. This is Wigmore Street, laid out in the late 18th century as part of the Portman Estates expansion. Here we find a plaque for Paolo Tosti. I've done a couple of videos on London's blue plaques. I humbly suggest you take a look. There are some fascinating individuals included. Born in Ortona, Italy in 1846, Tosti was a composer and singing teacher who became one of the most popular writers of Victorian and Edwardian drawing room songs. He moved to London in the 1870s, taught at the Royal Academy of Music, and later became vocal instructor to the royal family. His best-known songs include Goodbye and Forever and Forever. He was knighted in 1908 and spent many years living and working in Marylebone. Here we are at Hinde Street. It was developed around 1770 and named after Jacob Hinde, a local landowner. The highlight here is Hinde Street Methodist Church, built in 1887 in a restrained classical style. It's known for its strong musical tradition and its long history of social outreach in the area. Marylebone Lane is one of the oldest surviving routes in the district. Unlike the straight Georgian streets around it, the lane curves because it follows the line of the old Tyburn stream. Today it's full of independent shops, small galleries and cafes. This is one of those corners of London that feels like a small town, despite being only a stone's throw from Oxford Street. I've made it to George Street and St James's Roman Catholic Church, Spanish Place. The name Spanish Place comes from the Spanish Embassy, which established a chapel here in the late 18th century. The original chapel, built in 1793, served London's Spanish community and became known simply as Spanish Place. When the embassy moved, the chapel continued as a Catholic church. The current St James's Church was built between 1890 and 1893, designed by Edward Goldie in a Gothic revival style. It's one of London's largest Catholic churches, with a richly decorated interior, a tall nave and strong links to the Spanish community. The old chapel stood nearby until it was demolished in the early 20th century. This is Jacob's Well Mews. For overseas viewers, a mews is a small street of former stables and coach houses, usually behind grander townhouses. In the 19th century, these were where horses, carriages and servants lived and worked. Today they're highly desirable residential streets. Jacob's Well Mews takes its name from an old spring or well in the area. The Mews retains its cobbled character and gives a sense of Marylebone's working past. I do love the old sign on the wall here. Further along Spanish Place is the plaque for George Grossmith. Born in London in 1847, Grossmith was an actor, comedian, singer and writer. He became famous for starring in the original Gilbert and Sullivan operas, including The Mikado and HMS Pinafore. He also co-wrote The Diary of a Nobody with his brother Weedon Grossmith, one of the great comic novels of Victorian England. At the same address lived novelist Frederick Marryat. Born in Westminster in 1792, Marryat was a naval officer and novelist. He served in the Royal Navy during the Napoleonic Wars and later wrote popular seafaring novels such as Mr. Midshipman Easy and The Children of the New Forest. He lived in this area during the height of his writing career. This National Museum, housed in Hertford House and known as the Wallace Collection, contains the art collection of the Marquesses of Hertford and Sir Richard Wallace. It includes French 18th century paintings, arms and armour, furniture and decorative arts. It's one of London's lesser known museums and it's so worth a visit.
Но при условии, если там, я говорю, возникнут проблемы,
Circling back, I've reached Blandford Street and the plaque for Michael Faraday. Faraday was born in Newington Butts in 1791. He was one of Britain's greatest scientists. He worked as an apprentice bookbinder here in Blandford Street before entering the Royal Institution. His discoveries in electromagnetism, including electromagnetic induction, laid the foundations for electric motors and generators. I timed that well. just in time to hear the bells of St James's Church.
With him, with her, and then she's going to take it down.
Marylebone High Street is the heart of the neighbourhood, busy, lively and full of shops. Turning into Moxon Street, the crowds thin out. So if you find yourself in the heart of London and want some peace, just explore the side streets. These Ossington buildings, built in the late 19th century as model housing, retain huge character and are often remarkably quiet. Next up, we have a tribute to one of the great cultural events of the 1980s. Ashland Place runs alongside Paddington Street Gardens. Halfway along is a plaque marking where Live Aid was planned and administered in 1985. If, like me, you were a teenager in the 1980s, Live Aid was an unforgettable event. It was a dual-venue charity concert held on July 13th, 1985 in London and Philadelphia, organised by Bob Geldof and Midge Ure to raise funds for famine relief in Ethiopia. The London concert took place at Wembley Stadium and featured Queen, David Bowie, U2, Elton John and many others. The administrative work, the planning, logistics and coordination happened right here in Ashland Place. Time for some green space. There'll be more later. This is Paddington Street Gardens. It was once St George's burial ground and opened in 1733. It was converted into a public garden in the late 19th century. Today it's a peaceful spot with flower beds, benches and even a giant outdoor chess set.
Somewhere between one and two.
These guys are all like, you guys are too,
Either it's too proud or they're not sure. Whatever the reason, they want to do it.
Actually, if we do here.
This is Chiltern Street and it takes us to the Marylebone Road, a place I remember fondly from my days working at Lord's Cricket Ground. We're here to seek out a great detective. Here's a clue. The great man himself in statue form was unveiled in 1999. Yes, this is Sherlock Holmes. Naturally, the statue would be here at Baker Street, which is forever associated with Arthur Conan Doyle's fictional detective. Let's head down the Regent's Park end of Baker Street, because the famous names don't end with Sherlock Holmes. Here we have H.G. Wells. Born in Bromley in 1866, Wells was one of the founders of modern science fiction. His works include The War of the Worlds, The Time Machine, and The Invisible Man. He lived in this area during the early 20th century. Next up, we have novelist Arnold Bennett, who is not as well known outside of the UK as H.G. Wells. Born in Hanley, Staffordshire in 1867, Bennett was a novelist best known for The Old Wives' Tale and the Five Towns series. Further along from Wells and Bennett, there is a plaque for composer Eric Coates. Born in Nottinghamshire in 1886, Coates was a composer of light music. His Knightsbridge March became the theme for the BBC's In Town Tonight, but for most Britons, he is remembered for the legendary Dam Busters March. This is more of an unusual plaque because it doesn't commemorate a person, but rather an entity. This plaque marks the headquarters of the Special Operations Executive's Norwegian section, which planned the Telemark sabotage operations against Nazi heavy water production in Norway, a crucial part of preventing Germany from developing nuclear weapons. Across the street is the Sherlock Holmes Museum. As of 2026, admission is £19 for adults and £14 for children. It usually opens from 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. For all of you emergency vehicle enthusiasts, you'll enjoy this cluster of marked police cars. I love visiting Regent's Park. It's a large park, so this is going to be quite a walk. We'll go into the area known as the Inner Circle and then take the long path known as the Broad Walk. Regent's Park, designed by John Nash in the early 19th century, is one of London's great green spaces. If you're not from these parts and you don't know what an allotment is, well, an allotment is a small rented plot of land where people grow fruit, vegetables and flowers. They're a long-standing part of British urban life, giving residents a bit of countryside in the city. The waiting lists for them can be huge.
Romeo encarcelado, ¿sabes?
This is the ready money drinking fountain, donated in 1869 by Sir Kawasaji Jahangir, a philanthropist from Bombay. He presented this fountain to the people of Britain as thanks for the protection given to him and his fellow countrymen under British rule in India. On my left is London Zoo. The zoo was founded in 1828 and is the world's oldest scientific zoo. It houses conservation projects, historic listed buildings and famous exhibits like Penguin Beach and the Reptile House. Admission prices, as of 2026, are £31.80 for adults and £22.20 for children. We have reached the final leg of our walk, and in order to get up this hill, I'm going to need some refreshment. That climb was fueled by a protein bar, but wow, it's worth every effort. There are a few views like this from different parts of London, but this here at Primrose Hill is one of the finest. What we can see is the skyline stretching from the City of London to Westminster and beyond. Here's a good place to end our journey. If you enjoyed this walk, subscribe to Tales of Britain, drop a comment, which is really useful for a channel, and join me again for more journeys like this.